non-humans may well have murdered human beings.
That seems to be the case at one point, yeah.
How did you initially discover this program, and what was your first encounter with the information?
Do you have any personal knowledge of people who have been harmed or injured in efforts to cover up or conceal these extraterrestrial technology?
Yes, because I thought my life was in danger. Mr. Chairman, ranking members and congressmen.
If you were me, where would you look?
I can tell you specifically.
A highly cleared intelligence officer named David Grusch would appear on News Nation, Yes Theory, Jesse Michaels, Joe Rogan, the BBC, and Tucker Carlson, and in front of Congress. Who is he? Why is everyone talking about him? What exactly is he saying? And what are their implications? I'm here to tell you this guy is the real deal, and here's why. This is Deep Dive, David Grusch. In May 2022, David Grusch filed a formal whistleblower complaint, and his allegation? He had stumbled upon a UAP or UFO crash retrieval program dating back about 90 years, which was operating without congressional oversight. This is illegal. He sent his allegations and his witnesses who came forward to him who were working in this program and their evidence to the Intelligence Community Inspector General. For context, the intelligence community refers to the three-letter agencies that all glow in the dark and do the government's dirty work. You know, CIA, FBI, NSA, and some more.
Sorry.
An Inspector General is someone whose job it is to monitor organizations and report and investigate fraud and misconduct.
The Inspector General made a determination about the credibility of your complaint.
They found, after interviewing myself and the subjects, and other subjects that I'm not even cognizant on who they were, they found my complaint urgent and credible for the intelligence committees.
An official investigatory body of the United States government has determined that your allegations are credible.
Correct.
For the record, everyone involved here has to swear under oath, which means if they are presenting lies or fraudulent evidence, this would be prosecuted under perjury. This officially makes David Grusch legally a whistleblower under US law, and his claim would climb the grapevine of Congress itself, where he was allowed to brief congressional staffers on the situation.
When I eventually went to Congress in December of 2022, and it's a crazy story why it took so long, it's fucking nuts. But I provided total about 11 and a half to 12 hours of classified testimony to the congressional staffers and their lawyers for both the House and the Senate.
And then lawmakers would attempt to take action.
The Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena Disclosure Act.
We've had 3-star generals tell us that we did not have authorized access to this information, but yet how do you expect us to continue to send taxpayer money to fund government projects if you're not even allowing us to see what those projects are?
You now have the overview, but let's go into the specifics, because there is a lot of details for everything I just said.
Are there discussions of interactions with live beings?
Let's begin at the start and go through the events as they happened. David Grusch was in the Air Force, 7 years active, 7 years reserve. While active, he served in Afghanistan in combat and intelligence, and later, during his reserve years in early 2019, would join the UAP Task Force. But what's that? The UAP Task Force was a program under the Department of Defense, I guess Department of War now, which stated the following as their objective: to improve its understanding of and gain insight into the nature and origins of UAPs. The mission of the task force is to detect, analyze, and catalog UAPs that could potentially pose a threat to U.S. national security. Now, Grusch walked into this skeptically. He would say the following:
being well cleared, and also a bachelor's degree in physics, master's in intelligence analysis, I'm like, you know what? I'll figure out what this shit is. It's either going to be weather shit, maybe it's an adversarial program, maybe it's like a U.S. program people are misidentifying on rare occasions.
He would interview more and more witnesses and slowly realize this might be real. But what were they telling him? What was he seeing? One man was going to work driving on a highway, and he saw something terrifying. Just a couple hundred feet above him, he saw a black triangle, which itself was about 300 feet wide, and it was following him.
I mean, this individual was early in the morning, going to work, not under the influence of anything, and that person had a similar clearance as mine, TSSCI. So we've gone through
What's that?
top secret, sensitive Department of Information clearance, and just like myself, I've been through multiple polygraphs in my career. So did this individual.
Grusch was shown photos of the car afterwards because it had turned white from suspected ionizing radiation. You're probably familiar with how a car headlight may get foggy over time. This is because light can wear away at things, like plastic. Well, imagine that, but in one night, and to an entire car. Other stories would include football field-sized crafts.
A lot of them were very large, yeah. Like a football field kind of size. And I remember interviewing these personnel. I'm like, either these people are lying to me, they're having a psychotic break, or this is some crazy but true stuff that's happening, and I have no good explanation that's prosaic at all for this.
And even bizarre radar data, similar to something Ryan Graves, another whistleblower, testified to.
So you guys go from not having any idea that these things are out there to an upgraded radar system to seeing them every day.
Yep. And he was just sitting there saying, hey, I was hit with those damn things. And he described it. He described it just as a black or dark gray cube. And that cube was inside of a clear, translucent sphere.
More and more crazy stories were finding their way to him from incredibly reputable people. And he was left wondering,
has the government studied this before? This wasn't just OSAP and ATIP and Blue Book and all this shit in the past, right? This seems serious, so certainly the government has looked at this, and I went to search for that program, and that's what I ended up whistleblowing on, right?
Oh, this is all confusing. Why do I have to keep learning new things?
Blue Book was the U.S. Air Force's first program to publicly investigate sightings of UFOs during the UFO craze of the early 50s and late 60s. OSAP is a bit different. Its official goal was to study cutting-edge aerospace tech and defense, but in reality was an exploration into both UAPs and how they connect to the wider world of the paranormal. It was funded heavily at the request of Senator Harry Reid. We'll get to his involvement later because him being a part of this is a very big deal. ATIP was a smaller program under the Department of Defense to evaluate military UAP sightings. You might be familiar with when the Pentagon released and confirmed these videos as genuine footage taken by the military. As it turns out, aliens seem to be very interested in military areas. So David Grusch was investigating every potential lead he could find, and then he got what he was looking for.
A very senior individual in the intel community came to me when I guess I was asking a lot of questions because I'm a very inquisitive guy, and it was like, hey, I need to introduce you to somebody, a PhD level education, clearance, resume was insane. And I ended up meeting that person in a top secret facility, and he started the discussing like, hey, there's a program, I was on it, and we were reverse engineering crash material that we've recovered over the decades.
From here, David Grusch began to interview more and more people on this program, totaling up to 40. This included people that worked on the crafts, and even with the corpses of the pilots themselves.
But there are actual reports that we have biological remains.
Yes. Oh, yes.
How many?
It's up there as well, just like with the
and
the
they
retrievals,
vary.
yeah.
There's different kinds.
Now we get to the good stuff. So one of the earliest, or maybe the earliest, crash retrieval by the US government was of a craft which crashed in fascist Italy in 1933.
The intelligence officer that briefed me and we'll just say senior officials on Capitol Hill described how the edges of this, it was like a lenticular disc looking thing, but the edges broke off when it hit the earth. So it looked like an acorn or like a bell shape when they recovered it. Yeah, Mussolini asked the Germans to come down, and of course the Germans came down and they were like, that is not ours, but let's look at it together.
This confirms an ongoing legend in UFO folklore called Die Glocke, or German for the bell. It was even referenced in Call of Duty World at War in the Nazi zombie map Der Ries by the design of the teleporter and this. based on a location in Poland called Hitler's Stonehenge, on the site of a former Nazi bunker. As per legend, the bell would levitate erratically when on, and was chained here to study it. Its actual purpose is unknown. So, as it turns out, the Axis powers did seem to have a bell-shaped UFO, and we took it. Let's get into these crafts a bit more and what's being done with them. So, what progress has been made on these crafts? Well,
Can't get into if we've made progress, if they've made progress, because that's like straight up some national security stuff.
but he did imply something. Remember when the CIA and US Army investigated consciousness? For context, in the 70s, they had what was called Project Stargate. Its goal? Remote viewing and its applications for quote-unquote national defense. And they seem to have results. Jesse Michaels has an amazing interview with one of their best people, named Joseph McMoneagle. And in 1983, the CIA wrote a little document exploring what consciousness is, what God may be, and altering your consciousness deliberately. The Y-Files has a great video on this.
But it makes sense that they would kind of have to find out if that's bullshit or not. Like, you can't ignore that if you're really doing your job. If your job is intelligence, like, okay, like, let's look at this.
Or it's an aspect of the phenomenon because it's like a reach out from the crash retrieval program. Like, hey, I need you to look into some weird stuff because it might be the key unlock for something that we got in a warehouse, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Whoa.
So Grusch is saying that consciousness may be related to how this technology operates, and that the CIA's fascination with it may have originated from this program, and figuring out how these vehicles and beings operate. And that aside, this technology from this program would also spread into surrounding programs by the military to influence and inspire new innovations.
not a lot of the things that we've learned from it are like directly, ripped off the technology we found, but it has inspired other innovations that made its way into other U.S. classified programs over the year for national defense reasons.
And who is working on these crafts? Well, military contractors, and one of which we know. Lockheed Martin.
He made this disclosure, not me, so I'm going to say the name of the contractor. Harry Reid said this. We knew that Lockheed Martin had this material for decades. I tried to get access and I was denied. And
a side note here, remember the craft from Dr. Reid's encounter? Tell me if you recognize something.
The key to unlocking a new way of designing aircraft. The design began as a simple diamond that aerodynamicists of Lockheed's Skunk Works dubbed the Hopeless Diamond. They carefully chipped away at this simple but revolutionary shape to form a masterpiece, the F-117 Nighthawk.
Did you catch it? I wonder if they got inspired by something that you and I might have seen before. Back to Grusch. In his investigation, he found documents with Harry Reid interacting with a military contractor. Whatever it was invoking very high-level classification and security to do it.
why is Harry Reid saying that the OSAP program found something they needed to develop this provisional special access program that is waived and bigoted, which is the most serious of SAPs. Waived means it's limited congressionally reported, and bigoted meaning it's like by name.
It would turn out they were trying to transfer custody of crash materials from the contractor to the government, while avoiding the eye of the program. Okay, so this has really big implications. Essentially, Harry Reid pushed the funding of OSAP so much because he was aware that this program operated without congressional oversight and played by its own rules, all the while owning what is essentially godlike technology, and this was a huge security risk to America. OSAP and this attempted exchange of materials was him leading a one-man charge against this behemoth and trying to circumvent their power. He was a brave man.
So I'm sitting there in Harry Reid's living room, right next to him with some other witnesses that were there with me, and he straight up says, he's like, yeah, I knew we had UFO material. I was denied access for decades. He had like a weekly call with President Joe Biden at the time, and he straight up said to me he was going to talk to President Biden about this issue.
For context, Harry Reid is what's called a Gang of Eight member. These people are the most highly cleared congressmen and are therefore read into secret intelligence. Reid should not have been getting denied access. Okay, let's talk about the aliens themselves, or how Grusch calls it, biologics. He repeatedly mentions that we've recovered the dead alien pilots.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
Well,
Non-human.
naturally, when you recover something that's either landed or crashed, sometimes you encounter dead pilots.
But what about when these pilots are alive?
Do we have any sort of communication with these beings that give us some sort of an understanding or a map of this?
Yeah, the interaction stuff, it's a sensitive area. There were multiple very senior people that were concerned about talking about that kind of stuff with me.
Long story short, yes. Before we get into that part, quick disclaimer. Grusch is vague here, and purposefully so. He doesn't have direct sources on this part. Everything else he talks about is from direct sources, people that have personally worked in the crafts and personally worked in the bodies. But anything he hears about interaction with living aliens is secondhand to these witnesses themselves.
There were some details provided to me, but it's secondary, and I don't know if that's like the telephone game, and
Right.
I don't know if it was hyperbolized in any way, in the break room, so to speak.
And as a result, he doesn't talk about it specifically because he only wants to relay the facts that he knows to be true with direct witness testimony he brought to the ICIG. But across multiple interviews, he hints at what he's not saying quite a bit, such as, we shoot them down.
I've been told that there have been attempts to bring down craft, that we've acted offensively against non-human craft.
There have been instances, and there are certain techniques.
They've killed people intentionally.
Have human beings been hurt or killed by a non-human intelligence?
I was briefed by a few individuals on the program that there were malevolent events like that.
And there may be agreements made with them.
Have we made agreements with non-human intelligences?
That's the kind of information I really hope national leadership is able to get to the bottom of.
I need to pin you down on this. Are there agreements between non-human intelligences and the American government?
I think that's a question that I would like to know all the details of as well.
And our communications with them go way back.
If there have been these discussions, do we have an understanding of when they first took place?
Yeah, some specific events were mentioned to me, and I provided that information in a classified setting.
And how far back do they go?
Pretty far back. It's pretty weird.
So where are these aliens from? The government doesn't know, but they have some theories.
And there's something called the concept of von Neumann replicating probes. And I'm not just saying that as my own personal theory. I talked to scientists that were on this program, and this was one of their legitimate theories.
A von Neumann probe is a self-replicating probe. Imagine if we sent a rover to Mars and it made more rovers using local resources there. It could then build a type of mini civilization to essentially study Mars. Mini schizo checkpoint. Do you ever wonder why Greys look humanoid? Von Neumann probes are using local resources, and that includes local genetics, humans. But that's a topic for another time. Moving on. Okay, so now what about other countries? Well, they also have reverse engineering programs. This is a kind of Cold War that we don't know about.
But knowing that our adversaries were aware of this reverse engineering program, are we aware of their reverse engineering programs?
Yeah.
Grusch was given a document that we stole from a foreign adversary via our own intelligence, and it was them talking about the US reverse engineering program. So we know they have a program, and they know we do too.
And I'll never forget, I had, stolen by the U.S. Intelligence assessment from a certain foreign adversary discussing the U.S. reverse engineering program. And I was like, and that was actually another what the fuck?
Which countries have
you could probably guess.
Okay. Yeah, the big ones.
And you wouldn't be it won't be too shocking.
Okay.
But I won't acknowledge what the US may know.
So likely Russia and China. But you and I are interwoven into this Cold War despite not knowing about it.
The entire American public has been lied to for decades.
Yeah, there's a sophisticated disinformation campaign targeting the US populace, which is extremely unethical and immoral.
This is where we get into how the program does illegal things. So, for instance, the Atomic Energy Act of 1954, which classifies atomic projects heavily, was worded in such a way to include UAP materials.
Besides normal nuclear material, we can also protect stuff that is similar, and that's basically the justification of the secrecy on this topic, is the material that we recover sometimes does have radioactive properties.
And this was used to essentially keep both Congress and the president in the dark. And it would appear the government is okay with taking, let's just say, extreme measures to maintain secrecy.
But do you have any reason to believe that the U.S. government has hurt or killed anybody connected to these programs, American citizens?
There were concerns, like I stated during the hearing, of people that have espoused that to me.
The allegation was murder?
Yes, and then physical harm.
Remember that document saying how a foreign adversary was aware of our program? He chased down the source. But that seemed to trip someone's alarm bells. Suddenly, he lost access to that agency entirely. He was also now being accused of mishandling documents and suffering from mental disorders that he was deliberately not disclosing. He would even discover he was being investigated for months and wasn't told about it.
I was investigated by 3 agencies at once. They tried to dig up anything they could find on me. So when that didn't work, they just made up stuff. And it turns out, I found out after the fact, I was under criminal investigation for 4 months. I was never interviewed.
He fought the charges and won all of them. By the time he resigned from the military later on, he had retained all of his clearances. But his boss and coworkers weren't so lucky.
They ruined one of my boss's careers in another agency. They walked him out of the building and revoked his clearance and terminated him as a show of force after they were going after me. And they came after coworkers of mine. I can't get into who, what, when, where, and why to protect their identities and their own process. But
when they realized they couldn't hurt Grusch professionally, they escalated it. For this next clip, I want you to watch his body language and listen to the emotion in his voice as he describes what happened.
What happened to me personally was very disturbing. So I have to be very vague about this because ongoing investigation, but I think you'll understand what I'm saying, is they showed my wife and I they can touch me at any time, 2 times. And it was very disturbing. It was in conjunction with some other people getting a message like that are, let's say, publicly well-known, some that aren't publicly well-known. And of course, I immediately reported that to, counterintelligence, federal law enforcement local to me, because it, wasn't criminal, but it was like a fuck you to me.
It was at this point he filed his whistleblower complaint to save himself and do the right thing. You see, after the ICIG met with his witnesses, saw the evidence Grusch was presented, and deemed his whistleblower complaint credible and urgent, now it had to be brought to Congress. This is how the legal process went.
It was sent to the Director of National Intelligence, and then it was sent to the Congressional Intelligence Committees around that time, July of 2022.
For context, Congressional Intelligence Committees are specialized groups of lawmakers who oversee U.S. intelligence agencies and classified programs, receiving briefings and whistleblower reports that can't be shared publicly, like this one. Grusch would then provide 11.5 to 12 hours of in-person classified testimony to congressional staffers and their lawyers. All the times he's going, oh, I can't say that, that's classified, I can't go into that yet. Here, he went, as he says,
I went, full open kimono.
Nice.
I told them as much as I could within my time slot, if you will. So
we're talking dates, details, all the companies involved, and where specifically these crafts are. And he wasn't alone.
I brought the people who worked on that stuff to the Hill, and I was like, please explain. And they went into all those details and stuff. And I remember, some of the professional staff members were like, whoa, like they were like in G-lock, right? Because I mean, a total world bubble got burst right there for a lot of people.
So then what? Congress took it seriously. Names would include Ocasio-Cortez, Chuck Schumer, Tim Burchett, Mike Rounds, Marco Rubio, and Matt Gaetz.
Would you say this podcast is at least the second time you've met with a 17-year-old?
Well, probably since I've been 17.
Or 35. Pound it on that.
It was incredibly bipartisan. Politicians on both sides of the aisle are coming together for a greater good, which is what their job's supposed to be. And together, spearheaded by Schumer and Rounds, they made the UAP Disclosure Act, often referred to as the Schumer Amendment.
And then, of course, a month after I went public, I guess I pushed Chuck Schumer over the ledge. And I do know he talked to the White House about the amendment too, because not like Chuck Schumer's gonna propose groundbreaking legislation like that without talking to the National Security Advisor or President. Like, I imagine he did so.
Every year, the military gets funded by a bill called the National Defense Authorization Act, and they attempted to attach that bill into it. What it did was radical. It was going to...
There are two N-words, and you can't use either of them.
Sorry, Mr. President. I'm going to say both N-words. It was going to go nuclear on things not of this world. The initial proposals were eminent domain type measures. In plain speaking, the government would take ownership of any materials, technology, or biological evidence of non-human origin held by private individuals or companies. And a review board would figure out what had to remain classified, and what was going to be disclosed to the public as a form of controlled disclosure about NHI, with authority given to the president. And it was after all of this was drafted that Grusch went public. But he lost his entire military career by doing this. So why did he do it?
And I knew about the amendment a couple months before I went public, and that's kind of another reason why I did what I did. I'm like, fuck. I'm like the only guy that kind of has the opportunity to do this. I know what's in the chute, so to speak, that Chuck Schumer and his staff had with the Schumer Amendment, which is 67 pages of literal, we want to disclose. And I'm like, I have to spike the football by going public because, I can read the tea leaves on the Hill, and I think that they were hesitant to do anything without being able to point to something publicly. And I'm like, I'll be that fucking guy and just send it.
Without someone talking about this and bringing public awareness, Congress was at risk of just ignoring it, letting it fall through the cracks. So he rang the bell, set the spotlight, and got the world to watch entirely at his expense. And then it got passed in the Senate and went to the House. And there it got passed, kinda. All that eminent domain stuff was removed entirely. And the review board and controlled disclosure plan? It was also removed. Now, all that agencies were required to do was submit records of things that can be classified as UAP documents for archiving, but only if they themselves felt like it wouldn't affect national security in doing so. In other words, they have a giant loophole to just not do anything at all. They had turned this bill into doo-doo feces.
Folks in the House, I mean, total failure. It's one of the biggest failures probably in the history of Congress.
So why did this happen? The Senate was very cooperative, again, bipartisan support. The House was not.
You have the chair of the House Intel Committee, Mike Turner, who's blocking this, from Ohio, Dayton, Ohio area, right, Pat? Weird.
Mm-hmm.
And
Wright Pat meaning Wright Patterson Air Force.
Yeah. And Mike Rogers, which I'm kind of surprised, from Alabama, who's the chair of the House Armed Services Committee. So I have a problem with Mike and Mike right now.
Let's talk about Mike Turner. For context, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base is something brought up a lot in ufology lore. It's alleged that the crash at Roswell, whatever it was flown there. And there seems to be a trail of evidence that anti-gravity research was done there. And it looks like the guy who represented these special interests was also very interested in stopping David Grusch. So Mike and Mike won, but only for now, because there's a bright side here. We, the public, are still talking about it. You are watching this video. But more importantly, our elected officials are still talking about it and holding committee meetings almost 2 years later. The days of making fun of witnesses, saying it all exists in the realm of schizophrenia and delusion, that's over. We lost the battle, but we are winning this war. The media tried to paint Grusch like a crazy person. Just Google his name and see what you get. But that's not working. They couldn't stop him, and now the hero named David Grusch is an advisor to a congressman in Washington and hasn't stopped fighting for transparency. Because of Grusch, because of his brave witnesses that came forward to him, and because of some brave politicians on both sides of the aisle, this smear campaign narrative will no longer work. This goes beyond just UFOs. This is our future. This is how we contextualize our place in the universe. This is how we find out who we are. You may ask, aliens are real, so what? Why is any of this important? Well, to understand this, we have to look at ourselves. Mankind has always been curious as to the why of existence. It has been a question that is at the root of every religion. Why is there anything and not nothing? Why do the natural properties of our universe seem to produce life? What does it all mean? They have all sought to answer this and have produced great beauty in the process, and these belief systems have been a way to guide us to living meaningful lives. But they've always relied upon belief alone. Disclosure of non-human intelligence is the first real clue towards the questions of existence beyond only belief. One of the reasons the government didn't disclose was because they feared how this might affect religious beliefs. And they are right. The revelation of non-human intelligence will change everything, but in a good way. At one point, we thought humans were so special, the universe must revolve around Earth. And then Galileo discovered the Earth revolved around the sun. The human form was so special, it must have been made as it is now in a divine image all at once. And then Charles Darwin revealed we are but one form in a larger staircase of evolution that doesn't even stop with us. And for all of existence, we thought of ourselves as being the main act on the stage. But now we know we aren't the only intelligent life in this universe, or even the most advanced. I don't think anyone ever had the questions of life figured out ahead of time. But I don't think atheism has the answers either. I think the truth here lies in the middle of these two extremes, and that is simple curiosity. Curiosity in its purest form has never mattered more than in this moment. We're going to be facing a lot of tough questions on who we are and where we are going. This is best summed up by a passage from Nietzsche's Thus Spoke Zarathustra. Man is a rope stretched between the animal and the Superman, a rope over an abyss, a dangerous crossing, a dangerous wayfaring, a dangerous looking back, a dangerous trembling and halting. What is great in man is that he is a bridge and not a goal. Don't believe the best thing to happen to humanity will be the end of days, but don't believe that nothing is worth believing in. The best thing is knowing the sun will rise tomorrow and many more times after. Believe in curiosity. Let me show you why.
T-minus 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You can now glimpse the future with nothing more than a modem, a phone line.
It's very hip to be on the internet right now. And we are calling it iPhone.
One of the things I'm really excited about here.
Affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God.